A short balloon trip of 6 miles to the northwest of Dunsfold would take you to Godalming Fire Station. This busy 2-pump retain station serves the small market town of Godalming, together with Milford, Hascombe, Farncombe, Charterhouse and Whitley. Godalming is the busiest retain station in the county, averaging over 460 incidents a year. The station is situated alongside the busy A3100 on the approach to Godalming town. It was Godalming's drill night, so we followed the crew to a drill session at the nearby River Way. The drill was to lift water from the river using 3 lengths of suction hose and to get 2 jets to work on the adjacent embankment. With darkness looming, all the equipment was made up and re-stowed on the appliance. And within a short time of returning to station, Godalming was responding to yet another incident. We followed Godalming on another occasion for this 4-pump fire at a residential bungalow near Milford. An attached double garage was totally involved in fire on arrival, but swift action by the crews prevented the fire spreading into the bungalow at ground and roof level. Water supplies were obtained from a nearby hydrant and supplemented by the use of the water carrier from Farnham. Cutting away and dismantling of the garage roof timbers and further damping down continued into the afternoon. Eight and a half miles southwest of Godalming, and one of the furthest outposts in the west of the county, is Hazelmere Fire Station. Located off the High Street, this 1974-built 4-bay station with small drill yard has an allocation of one whole-time pump, one retained pump and a Land Rover pump. With a station ground of about 52 square miles, 90% of it being rural, Hazelmere averages over 670 calls a year. The station commander's car, like the rest in the county, is currently a Renault Megane. The station also accommodates the Surrey Benevolent Fund shop vehicle, which sees regular use throughout the year on county-wide fundraising missions. We went out with Hazelmere one afternoon to observe some hydrant testing. Apart from the physical testing of the hydrant, it plays a very important part in familiarising the crews with the locations of the hydrants. Many valuable minutes can be saved at a working job if the whereabouts of a hydrant is known rather than having to look it up in a location book. The operation of the main valve is tested and the flow rate observed. On completion of the test, a check is made that the frost valve is in proper working condition and that the hydrant does not let by when the main valve is closed. A final check is made to ensure that the cover fits correctly. On completion of the hydrant testing, Hazelmere were ordered onto a Make Pumps 3 Land Rover required on Farnham's ground at Frensham Common. Approximately 4 hectares of heathland were involved in fire, and with a brisk wind fanning the flames, Farnham had to request assistance. With 2 Surrey appliances, the Land Rover pump from Hazelmere and the assistance of a bordering Hampshire water tender, the fire was soon extinguished. During the summer months, heath fires are common in Surrey, especially in the west of the county, and they often involve lengthy, strenuous work. Access roads are usually narrow and traffic congestion is inevitable. When Farnham had finished at this instant, we went with them to visit their fire station. Located 9.5 miles northwest of Hazelmere, and again on the western edge of the county, this 1967-built station followed the Surrey Fire Brigade's standard design of the 1960s. With the drill tower at the bottom of a very large drill yard, this 4-bay station provides fire cover to an area of approximately 77 square miles. Farnham has much heathland of the type we've just seen at Frensham, and also many military training areas, including Ash Ranges. Farnham also provides backup to Hampshire in the Aldershot, Alice Holt and Borden areas. Having an allocation of a water tender ladder, a Land Rover pump and water carrier, this station has a complement of 1 station commander, 4 sub-officers, 4 leading firefighters and 20 firefighters. The Dennis rapier here is special. It was the Dennis demonstrator and was delivered to the service along with the other supplied rapiers. Being an ex-demonstrator, it is the GTI model, having a different cab to the standard production model and the luxury of additional driving and fog lamps and tinted electric windows. The last station we visit in the county is Camberley. Located on the main A30 West of England Trunk Road, Camberley is probably the most well-known of all fire stations to firefighters in the county. The reason? Heath fires, and lots of them. During the summer months, the crews virtually live on the commons, and while they're out, other appliances from all over the county run into Camberley to provide cover. Inevitably, it isn't long before they're turned out to their own grass fire. O'Dean, Barossa, Tarmac Hill, Ash Ranges and Frimley fuel allotments, to name but a few, are well-known locations to most service personnel. We spent the day with Redwatch.
We're at crew shed, crew standard east. Good morning, gentlemen. Riders today, Station Officer Chegwin, Firefighter Atkins, Firefighter Whitfield, Firefighter Nando, 301, crew shed, crew full out.
After roll call, all the necessary routine equipment checks are made. The Volvo FL6, having only recently arrived at Camberley, positively gleams in the sun. Camberley has an allocation of 2 water tender ladders, a water carrier and Land Rover pump. It's not all Heathland fires though, and here Sub-Officer Cumner gives a lecture on operational tactics at Camberley's shopping centre.
Approach tactics and the firefighting associated with a town centre that's covered in. As you can see, we're surrounded by easy access roads and service areas 1, 2, 3 and 4. Unfortunately, the only...
But there's no rest here at Camberley as the crew responds to another call. To the north of the station lies approximately 7 square miles of military training ground. Heath fires occur regularly here. Access is via unmade roads, and a local landmark is this communications tower, known as the Camberley Mast. Unfortunately, it can be seen from miles around, and when the calling public are asked where the fire is near, they nearly all say, "The mast." The road track system in this area does allow heavy appliances good access, but if you're from another part of the county and you don't know the area, then good map reading skills are essential. Here we see Camberley's appliances tackling a small grass fire, which, in spite of the wind conditions, was easily contained. This was the site, however, that greeted the first appliances sent to a heath fire at Ash Ranges. Seen here from the A31 Hog's Back, which is 4 miles away, the rapidly spreading fire front was being fanned by a strong northeasterly wind. The first appliance attending from Rushmore in Hampshire was confronted by 3 separate fires, which were merging into one. The leading firefighter in charge was soon requesting 4 pumps, a water carrier and a Land Rover pump. This request was followed a quarter of an hour later by Farnham's officer in charge making pumps 8. Having started at the top of the hill, the fire spread very rapidly down both flanks in opposite directions. At the bottom of the hill on one side is the Aldershot to Woking railway line, where the fire was now approaching. On the other side of the railway line is Keogh Barracks, headquarters of the Royal Army Medical Corps. As supporting appliances arrived, they were deployed along this fence line in an effort to stop the fire jumping the railway tracks. Two other pumps were redirected to tackle the fire from the Tunnel Hill direction. At 16:13 hours, water carriers were increased to 2, the second one being sent to Tunnel Hill. At 16:18 hours, pumps were increased to 10. And at 16:46 hours, the main Mitchett to Woking road over the tunnel was closed due to the impending fire spread. The railway traffic was also stopped and the third rail isolated as the fire had now crossed the line. At 17:11 hours, the senior divisional officer in charge increased pumps to 16. With the possibility of 2 further square miles of heathland interlaced with residential properties becoming involved, it was imperative to make a fire break at the road. With a rendezvous point established at the range warden's office, supporting appliances and officers were directed onto the fireground by use of UHF radio from the control unit, which had been set up on nearby high ground. The Surrey police helicopter, seen here above the control unit, is making an aerial assessment of the extent of the incident. He later took the incident commander aloft to view the scene and to help plan the continued firefighting. At 17:41 hours, an informative was sent reporting 120 hectares of heathland alight with a 1 mile long fire front. One of the hazards of tackling fires on army training grounds is that of dropped unexploded ammunition. As the fire engulfs the heathland, these munitions explode. Most are blanks that result in no more than a loud bang, but sometimes live bulleted ammunition explodes, with the projectile going off haphazardly. It was with this danger in mind that crews were withdrawn from some of the areas. Now all they could do was wait for the fire to burn through, towards them.
Just about hit this tree here.
Appliances and crews from all over the county were now in some way involved in the incident. Even Hampshire supplied a pump from as far away as Alton. The struggle at Tunnel Hill went on, with 10 additional pumps being requested to relieve the weary day watch crews. With sunset approaching, the crews continued to work on. Most of the fire front on the southern edge of the incident was now contained and only required a watching brief. The main thrust of the action was at Tunnel Hill. The fight to contain the fire continued. With the relief pumps arriving and fresh crews being deployed, the main areas of fire were being controlled. Fire still existed within the range danger areas, and these were allowed to burn. The crews dealing with the fire as it approached the perimeter tracks around the range. By midnight the fight was won, and not long after the trains were able to run again. By 0300 hours, pumps were reduced down to 2, with 2 water carriers and 4 Land Rover pumps remaining in attendance. At daybreak on day 2 of the incident, renewed outbreaks of fire were again endangering the Royal Army Medical Corps headquarters. Their own fire pickets were deployed, damping down the roofs of their wooden buildings adjacent to the railway line. Shortly after the 0900 hour reliefs had been made, pumps were increased to 4 to assist with the new outbreaks of fire which were occurring across the ranges. By 11:33 hours, 3 separate areas of fire had re-established themselves, and pumps and crews were redeployed. At 12:10 hours, the officer in charge made pump 6, requesting the reattendance of the control unit. Firefighting recommenced, most of the fires now burning in quite difficult terrain. Refreshments were made available, and crews like this one from Sunbury improvised on the bonnet of a Land Rover while still keeping a wary eye on the fire. The control unit was established on Mitchett Place Road, with the road being closed for the second time in 2 days. At 12:46 hours, pumps were increased to 8, the fire front now stretching over 3/4 of a mile and moving towards the established fire break at Tunnel Hill. The incident had attracted the interest of the media, and this Meridian presenter and cameraman filmed and interviewed some of the crews. At 13:33 hours, pumps were increased to 10. The army assisted the firefighters by supplying 50 troops from the nearby barracks.
Yeah, control from station officer go. Request from incident commander. Can you send a second pump up to assist Crowfall?
They were deployed to deal with hotspots around the ranges. Firefighting operations continued throughout the day, with an 8-pump relief at 1800 hours. The incident finally closed some 36 hours later. For 4 days, the service's resources were stretched to deal with this heath fire. In all, 107 appliances, 326 firefighters and 22 officers were mobilised at one time or another. This, together with 10 jets, 20 hose reels, beaters and breathing apparatus, eventually defeated the fire. As mentioned earlier, we now view exclusive incident footage of the major fire that occurred at Thorpe Park. During the afternoon of the 21st of July, a fire started at the Thorpe Park leisure complex near Chertsey. With the brigade being called at 15:12 hours, Chertsey and Eggham's appliances were faced on arrival with a serious fire within an enclosed boat ride. The theme park having at the time over 5,400 visitors on site, with approximately 500 in the vicinity of the fire, pumps were immediately made 6, followed 3 minutes later by "Make pumps 8, persons reported." Firefighters with jets and breathing apparatus were deployed to fight the fire within the building and to assist with the evacuation of members of the public away from the fire area. Water relays were implemented from adjacent open water supplies. With the fire now spreading into the adjoining complex, which in total covered an area of some 300 by 200 metres, at 16:01 hours, pumps were increased to 10, with an ALP requested so that a water tower could be established on the fire. Reinforcing crews were deployed, with additional jets and BA within the complex in an attempt to stop further fire spread. A divisional officer was now in charge of the incident, and after an operational assessment of the situation at 16:39 hours, pumps were increased to 15, ALPs 2. A concerted and focused firefighting and salvage operation then followed. Following a partial collapse of the building, improvised ground monitors were set up. With the ALP in position and in use, a considerable amount of water could now be brought to bear on the fire. Reinforcing crews from London and Berkshire fire brigades awaited their deployment at the control unit. The second ALP was brought into position on the other side of the fire.
The red valve on the top of the tank. Check.
Having previously been engaged in salvage work elsewhere within the complex, the damage control team begin moving the radio-controlled trucks to a safe area. It was also one of the hottest days of the summer, so the park staff kindly supplied the firefighters with extra liquid intake. The timber construction of the buildings, together with many hidden spaces and voids, made firefighting difficult and arduous. "75 minutes later, the fire was finally contained, with no further threat to the adjoining buildings. The Assistant Chief Officer, now in charge, was able to send a fire surrounded message. This was followed shortly after by the stop message at 1931 hours. It stated that a range of timber buildings covering an area of 100 by 50 metres was severely damaged by fire, with 10 jets and 2 ALP monitors and BA used. Although the fire had damaged 2 of the park's rides, over half of the building complex was saved by the expertise of the firefighters. With over 5,000 members of the public on site at the outbreak of the fire, the situation had the potential to develop into a major disaster. The prompt action of Thorpe Park staff in the initial evacuation, together with the skill and dedication shown by the firefighters in tackling the blaze, is a credit to all concerned. The theme park was able to reopen again to the public the next morning. We wish to express our grateful thanks to Thorpe Park for allowing this footage to be used in this programme.